Welcome to my cellar. Got a few interesting places we're going to hop around here tonight. So I'll scrunch right up and we'll get right into it. Hello there. I was wondering what it was like to publish stories by Gardner Fox and Fritz Leiber in the pages of Dragon magazine. I can only imagine that as a fan of sword and sorcery stories, it must have been an incredible feeling. Who are some of your favorite sword and sorcery authors? Well, you're right. It was an incredible feeling. I got to meet him along with Harry. I got to meet Fritz, Mr. Lieber. I got to meet him and Harry Fisher, his longtime partner, who was the mouser to Fritz's Fafford in their make-believe world, etc., and therefore the basis of all the stories. Gardner Fox was such a gentleman, such a very kind man, and it happened that when I told him, that I came from a house where comics were frowned upon, and I knew that he had done some, and he told me the ones he'd done, the Flame and Flash, and some of the stuff he'd written for, it just blew me away. I got to correspond with Elspreg de Camp and republish one of his stories. It was a dream come true, and in some ways it was very surreal because I'd just been reading these guys in college, and some of them I'd been reading a while. I'd really expanded my sword and sorcery reading at a period after I got out of the service, and so I was eating these up as they came out and finding old ones, and if you ask me as who's my favorite author, I don't know. I don't like to pick and choose. If you ask me who's the nicest one I've ever met, Gardner Fox, and the one that awed me the most, it would have been Fritz. It was amazing. The funny thing about those stories is the people reading the magazine didn't want them. They wanted more pages of games and tables and stuff like that. And number one, I didn't have a lot of excess copy, games and tables and stuff like that. And this was a period of time when people were searching, new DMs were trying to figure out where to get ideas from. And so at Dragon Magazine would periodically print some fiction to help people find ideas. I printed the Finzer family because it was a novel approach, and I wanted to be able to expose people to other ways, not so much ways of thinking, but other people's imaginary worlds, so that they can then pick and choose what they would use in their imaginary world. How many board games that simulate RPGs have you come across? Well, I'm not exactly sure what. I don't know that I've ever found a board game that simulated an RPG, because by its very nature, board games have a finite set of rules and ordinances and boundaries and whatever. Now, to flip that coin over, don't we, playing certain board games, don't we role play anyway? Last night, what is the name of that rascal? It's over there. It's about zombies and vampires and stuff like that. There's a whole series of them. Oh, there it is. Let's see what it is. How's this for state of the art, huh? Well, I can't read it from here anyway. Anyway, don't we? Okay, if you want to get real simplistic, don't we all pretend we're railroad barons when we play a railroad game? Shipping barons if we play a shipping game. Fishermen if we play a fisher game. And I'm not talking about catching bass, but there's a game out called Fleet. I think it's a really wonderful abstract game of fishing, catching the right fish when the market's right. And, as I recall, there might even be a way to hamper the other guy's progress, which always makes it a better game in a lot of people's eyes. I can't say that I've ever seen one that did that. You assume the persona of a general when you sit down to play a war game. And again, if it's a war game and you're on the side that didn't traditionally, if it's simulation and you're on the side that lost, well, you certainly aren't imitating whoever it was, and historically you weren't playing his role because he lost. You're trying to play your own. Now, okay, our kind of role playing doesn't need boards and pieces and stuff like that, just dice, paper, and pencil. And okay, but have I seen a board game that simulated it? No, I haven't. Are there any out there? I don't know. Haven't seen any yet. I mean, when we play Vikings 878, we assume the roles of the commanders that led the great heathen army, for instance. It gets blurry in there. What was new about D&D in 1974 was there was no board game, there was no board, there were no counters, there were no stacks of community chest cards or deeds. That made it real different. Real different. And then I'm not even diverging into the board game field yet. That comes later. No, I haven't seen one. Doesn't mean it's out there. I don't see everything. I don't buy it. God knows I don't buy everything. And no, I don't want to have it sent to me. Given your feelings towards Kevin, I'd die to hear some of the interactions you had or witnessed with him that shaped your view. This is a fact. Can be documented. There's not too many people left that can document what I'm saying, because a lot of them are dead. But the thing that bothered me the most about Kevin was that he let his wife dress him. Now, the second thing I most disliked about Kevin was his wife. She just showed up one day, no job, no position, no salary, no nothing like that, and just started becoming the self-appointed office manager. And I can tell you, I didn't want nobody treading in my office. And so he was kind of a sniveler, always standing slightly behind and beside his brother. I just never, he rubbed me the wrong way from the very beginning. Could you tell us more about board games that you guys liked early in the days of D&D, apart from Dungeon, which is a good game? Well, it's funny you mentioned Dungeon, because about the only board games that we played much around during the 5 years that I was there were Divine Right, and of course that was being developed, and 1066, that was being developed, and we played an already developed game developed by one of us, my Cars, Fight in the Skies, and we played that a lot. We played at Mike's apartment, and big game. We used to make maps out of cutting boards, patterned cutting boards, and then play the game on that. So you had an enormous map board. I still have a couple over here. Nowadays they play it on a printed, like a giant tablecloth. I have one of those too. And we played a lot of Fight in the Skies. We played, like I said, we played 1066 while it was being developed, and fooled around with it a little after. And Divine Right got played a lot because it went through an extensive development. And it seems as though they got it right, because the game's still popular today when you can find it. Okay, apparently somebody asked, I must have missed something here. Anyway, someone's saying, yes, I'm interested in board games. If it's a game, I'm generally interested, but yeah, I have a huge board game collection and play weekly in a board gaming group. Good. Games are games are games. Okay, I came to the fledgling TSR hobbies. Well, actually, I came to Tactical Studies Rules for the first couple of weeks. And I came from board games, mostly simulations, and minis that I had only picked up a couple of years earlier in college at the university. So I came in with a different mindset background. All of us did, because we made something that hadn't existed before. And we all had our slants and our biases and our outlooks. We all came from much the same places, but we all played different games. We used different rules and minis. And so we were kind of cosmopolitan in that regard. Oh, yes, and yes, I knew the term chuffed, and yes, I will give you credit for having jogged my memory for it, and I'm glad it's made you chuffed. So yeah, I could listen to you talk for hours. Yeah, well, yeah, and we need to give you more questions to keep you on longer. Well, that is true. That is true. Very few comments this week, and the viewership wasn't down. So I guess I'm not being, well, maybe I'm being too clear. Anyway, I'm going to digress for a minute. As lovers of games, if you are interested in the Napoleonic era, you got to go to BritBox on your cable. Many, many years ago, the BBC aired a series of almost 2 hours, I think most of them are 2 hours, movies called Sharpe, Sharpe, which are adaptations of one of my very favorite authors, Richard Cornwell. I had been reading the series when I was first, my friend at the library, who was also a great Sharpe fan, which shocked me no end. And then I found out that she likes to read all the same stuff I do, and was also a fan of Cornwell. Anyway, she told me about this, and I caught a couple, and now BritBox is running them. And they take place in the Napoleonic Wars. I find them to be very well-written, short little 2-hour plays. They've done quite a lot with a smallish budget and a limited number of extras and actors and whatever. They've done a very excellent job of giving the impression that there's many more soldiers in the encampment and stuff like that, without any fancy, special effects or anything. Sean Bean, a young, slim, Studley, Sean Bean. It has the lead. There's some excellent British actors in it. It has an international cast. And, of course, because the BBC did it, the uniforms are correct. And all the Napoleonics people must be pulling their hair out because they can't find anything to criticize. But anyway, if you have access to BritBox, check it out. If that's your area of interest, they're good stories and they're fun to watch. Okay, here we go. In 5th edition D&D, this is a long one. In 5th edition D&D, the mechanic of resting has become a really big deal where you can take 1-hour rests or 8-hour rests to recharge class abilities. The word class. We're playing a high-level campaign where the goal is to collect all the pieces of a MacGuffin artifact before the enemy. However, the players keep having their characters taking rest to be at peak performance rather than dealing with attrition and hurrying to get the quest finished. Oh, I don't like the sounds of this already. What a bunch of sluggards. What a bunch of wussies. How would you deal with this situation if DMs aren't taking their race to get the artifact trope seriously enough because of game mechanics? I'm just letting the natural consequences of sleeping through the race fall into place, even though it's not fun for the players. We know it's about winning these days, not playing. Yes, sadly enough, it is. At the risk of offending any 5e aficionados who watch this, if I had a group that kept doing this, I'd attack them with wandering monsters. Every time they were outdoors and decided to take a 1-hour nap, I'd wake them up. Whether I actually attacked them or not, I'd find things that would wake them up. You got to play with attrition. You got to play. You don't drink your 1 potion when you're 2 points down. You wait till you're 8 points down. So if you max out, you get max effect. Taking 1-hour breaks? Right. How do you do that in a dungeon crawl? How do you do that outdoors? You make camp every time? Do you spend half a game hour searching the site to make sure there's no bad plants or snakes? And we went through the class abilities argument several times in the past. It's not anything I like. And so I would just say tough. I wouldn't foster that kind of play in a campaign I was running. And if I'm running a game at a convention and somebody suggests that, I'm just going to laugh. I find the concept of, oh, we need to stop for an hour to be laughable. The only time we ever stopped is if we were still in a dungeon crawl and we cleaned out a room and it was fairly clean and fairly secure. We'd stay in there and overnight. And therefore, get our night sleep, not 1-hour cat naps. Though I power nap myself, I'm not going to argue for it in game. And you're right, it's all about winning and not playing. It's more fun to play with low stats in the beginning and making the most of what you can be. Not coming in all buffed up. It's like a bunch of 6th graders coming up and beating up the kindergarten. Really? Come on. On the topic of passing an intelligence check to see if you could reattempt to pick a lock, I suppose you could do the same thing when using strength to force doors, except instead of intelligence, use con. I think that's an excellent idea. I really do. Did you strain something when you failed in that, that street of that feat of Herculean strength. Have a little tongue twisters tonight. Maybe you did. Maybe you strained something, and so you fail the con check. Yeah. Oh, pull the muscle in your back. Now, I wouldn't go any farther as to make you fight if you jumped a little while later, or make you fight at a disadvantage because you have a pulled muscle in your back. The pulled muscle in your back only applies to feats of strength or attempted feats of strength. Yes, I would make that distinction. Because in high adrenaline situations, we seem to overlook and forget all about minor aches and pains. Good idea, really is, yeah. You might even use intelligence and wisdom together. Is it wise to go? I don't know. We don't need to go crazy. On thief skills. At my table, I generally let other character classes use relevant ability checks to determine if they can perform an action usually covered by them. Whereas the advantage for, and then the question broke off. But as far as it goes, yes, I've always had players use what I consider to be relevant ability stats. Okay, now, stat checks. I shy away from the word ability because of abilities and yeah. But yeah, if you're going to try and climb the wall, you gotta make your dex. Why not? If you're going to jump across the chasm, be dexterous. Dex, agility. People have used so many workarounds over the years to get around the 5, 6 words that D&D uses for the stats. I can remember we used to work around it at Eldridge. Silly. Stats. I like to have leveling up occur in interludes between adventures, not instantly during the adventure. Good on you, I agree. One option I've used is to allow players to spend treasure to purchase training to improve a stat. Weight training to boost strength, martial arts training to increase agility, even going to charm school to improve charisma. If that works in your world, fine. But there should be limitations of a common sense nature, in my opinion. For instance, the 13th strength guy that wants to go beyond, say, 15 and keep boosting stronger and stronger and stronger, should then start suffering from the ill effects of bodybuilding that isn't training. Become muscle bound. Lose a little agility. Make them think the whole thing through. And if they come up with a training that's going to improve their strength and their agility, just charge them out the yoo-hoo for it. Let them. That's good. I would never tell somebody in the middle of the adventure, "Oh, Bob, you just went up a level." For one thing, I don't keep that close track of the points in front of me. Okay? For another, I don't know exactly how many anybody's earned until the after battle report. I'm not sitting there going and adding up EPs or XPs, whichever you choose to use, as fast as they mow down the row of goblins attacking them. I think it should be between in an interval. Good reason to come in out of the woods and rest up in a civilized, whatever your civilization level might be, or the size of whether it's a hamlet or a city or a town. That's entirely dependent upon your campaign. I've stopped using the term race in my RPGs. I use the term species. Good, congratulations. So do I. Race is such an misunderstood classification. It's a human race, not a black race or a brown race or a yellow race or any of that crap. It's a human race. Depending upon your squeamishness, however your world accounts for what's in it, species is always the safest, least offensive term you can use. Because so many people are triggered by terms that a year ago were considered innocuous, that you have to dance a delicate dance. You're on thin ice in hockey skates. So you got to dance the dance. I think it's a good way to do it. I think species is right. And then you can stop a whole bunch of cross-species hybridization. Elves are not the same species as humans. Dwarves, orcs, not the same species as humans. And if you take that approach, you don't have to deal with half this and half that and whatever, because species-wise, they're not viable candidates for hybridized offspring. Take it however far you want. That's really all I got based on what was left for our comments. You should go watch Wizard Tower Games from as soon as he puts it up. I went on there with him, and I talked about world building a world. And for me, it was a primer for a talk I'm going to give remotely for a friend's class somewhere out in Maine. So I made up a little outline and I'm going to refine it for him because I only have so many minutes. We only had an hour. I can't think of anything else to babble about. So keep playing. We're having more time. We have more weather that forces us to spend more time indoors. Yay! On my old gaming grid, before I go, just flashed across my brain. That's what we played, was board games. We all had been role players and are currently, or can, but we got together to play board games because board games are the most laughs per hour, I believe. And once again, if you aren't having fun, why are you doing this? On that interrogatory, I will say, Dodada Gobi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. TSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.